Hi, Sagittarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to your January 2025 Astro Update. It's Rena here. And being a Sun in Sagittarius myself, I'm recording this right before my birthday in mid-December. So happy birthday to all of you listening in December before your birthdays. I think a lot of people listening to this will be listening in December specifically. So I always like to tell people when I'm recording it because I don't want to pretend about certain dates. I want to, let you know that in my vantage point, it's in the future because it might be in your future too. So what is January? What are we stepping into in January? Well, first of all, with Sagittarius, we have had Mercury retrograde. So this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Talking about things that are actually occurring in the moment, not pretending that they're in the past. Because as I record this, Mercury is still retrograding until the 15th of December. So I'm recording this on the 12th, and so it's a few days from now. Now, this retrograde in Mercury is all Sag. So it hits earlier degrees, it hits later degrees. We're probably all have felt it in one way or the other. And sometimes it can be, since like for those of you for whom this is your solar chart, and this is, Sag is your sun sign, this could be your 12th house. It can be a little hairy to have Mercury retrograding in your 12th house, because it's like you're possibly dealing with things, finally facing things that you have been shoving under the rug. The 12th and the 8th houses are similar in certain ways to me. So the 8th house is the shadow, the Scorpio's domain, 12th house Pisces. When I talk about shoving things under the rug, I talk about escapism, kind of like diverting. And yes, it can have similar themes, but with the 12th house, it can actually be how you're lying to yourself. And you might believe those lies, in other words. And then when Mercury is retrograding, you can't look to the outer world. You have to really look at yourself. And it can be a little bit harsh sometimes. So some of you may have felt this too. I think also before your solar return, when your sun is in the 12th house, it can be very intense too, because you may feel like you want to withdraw from the world. And some of those fears, those demons can come up to the surface. And it's actually a good thing because the 12th house is the final house. Of course, we have this continual cycle, so we go back to the first house, but it's like unfinished business. So Mercury comes out of its shadow on the 3rd of the month, and that can really, I think that can really start to allow all of us to move forward, because I'm looking at this month and the things that I put down here. We have Mercury going into 2 more signs in the month of January, because it's been slowed down. It's like, whoa, it's not joking anymore. So anyway, you may feel some forward momentum. Let's put it that way. We do have Mars retrograding. And that started during Sagittarius season. That started on the 6th of December. And it is in a fellow fire sign. So even though it's in retrograde motion, it can still perhaps trine your sun or ascendant and be beneficial. This is coming from the ninth house that Sagittarius rules. So there can be issues around your own spiritual goals. But I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to just start from the first transit that I put down here, and that's on the 2nd, and that's Venus going into Pisces. Okay? So Venus in December is in your 3rd house. This is the house of the mind. So Venus here can give harmony, or even in some cases money, financial support to endeavors involving communication. So if, let's say you have started a YouTube channel, this might be the first month that you can monetize, that you can, or that you're getting your, ad revenue. It can be about harmony with your siblings. That's what the 3rd house can be. Aunts, uncles, cousins. It can be your neighbors, your local area. Something is very pleasant. And it's also maybe, finding pleasure. Venus can be pleasure in literary, activities. So that's what Venus in the 3rd house means. When Venus goes into your 4th house, it is harmonizing your home and family sector. Now, I just said brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, 3rd house. 4th house can be your mother. Some people say the father. I personally think it's more of the mother. And there could be harmonious interactions with her. There could be money from her. Venus can be money. There could be money for real estate or from real estate if you have sold a home. And yes, it could be something like, it could be either one of those, because we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces back in September, mid-September. So now we're talking about like 3.5 months later. And so there might be some situation that has been started, or when I say started with the lunar eclipse, the lunar eclipse can be massive endings, but I mean a catalyst for an ending that has a new beginning. All endings are beginnings and beginnings are endings of some sort. So with the eclipses, it's really not about, choosing one over the other. You have both Neptune and Saturn in this 4th house. Saturn has been here for almost 2 years, and Saturn's transit through a sign is less than 3 years. I would say like approximately 3 years, because I'm not going to look at it right now, but as I recall, at the end of 2025, Saturn has retrograded back into Pisces after going into Aries, and it's in, 25 degrees, whatever, of Pisces. So it is like this almost 3-year cycle, we would say. So the bottom line, the reason I'm bringing this up is because you may not have felt that the Saturn part of what Pisces represents has been true for you. Maybe you have, because it can be a very stabilizing effect. It can be, for some people, it might be the first time that they buy property, because Saturn can be, added responsibilities and some sort of laying down a foundation, which is the 4th house, roots. And so what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that if you haven't gotten the blessings from Saturn of the 4th house, you may get them still. There's still a year to receive them. And with Neptune, Neptune also is going into Aries in 2025. I haven't seen if it's going back into Pisces, but I assume it will as well because it's just so slow moving that, but I don't know. But anyway, with Neptune, what we're looking at is sometimes this can be things are very unclear in your environment. And I mean, this has been a long time coming. This has been since 2011. So that can be, maybe it's a little bit, it depends on actually when it entered your fourth house. So perhaps it hasn't even been there that long for some people. And it may feel like you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. This would be, one example is if you are a renter and there's other, tenants, or there's you have your landlord or what have you, and you just you feel like there's something there that is not quite what it appears to be. For people who own property, like if you bought a property and then you found out it had termites, they hid it from you. Neptune can be deception. So if you buy a property when Neptune is in the fourth house, thank God for Saturn, because that will balance it out. But, for all those years when Saturn wasn't there, before 2023, you might have had you might have bought some property or even rent, you were told something and it turned out to be other than what it was. One great thing about Neptune in the fourth house is that you may live by water. Of course, it can be other kinds of water issues like flooding and plumbing and flooding. It certainly I have experienced with plumbing myself, but the nice aspect is living by water. So that could still be in the works. And so on the 6th, Mars goes back into Cancer. Speaking of water and speaking of, Cancer rules the fourth house in astrology. So, but in Sag's case, Cancer is the 8th house for Sag. So the 8th house, one of the big areas of the 8th house is other people's money. And you may already be kind of sensing this as a theme. One thing, and what I will say about that is that we have the solar chart and the natal chart. If you're listening for the sun, then this is part of the solar forecast. The natal chart is based on your time of birth. And so if you're a sun in Sag, your rising sign might be, it's probably something totally different. And your chart is going to be totally different. So when I said you might already be seeing this as a theme, I was speaking from that perspective of having different types of charts that can be accurate in their own way. I think that this issue of other people's money, but also of transformation, personal transformation, personal alchemy, will be a theme in 2025 for Sagittarius, because Cancer is not just showing up in this Mars retrograde. Cancer is there's going to be a full moon in Cancer that I will speak about in a minute in January. There's also going to be Jupiter going into January later in the year. So I feel like this is fairly important for Sagittarius. Okay. So one theme of the 8th and the 9th houses. So Mars started in Leo in the 9th, going back to the 8th. These are both connected to spirituality. The difference between spirituality, the way I would put it, or I would characterize it as is the difference between shamanism and being a born-again Christian. I'm choosing something that's completely, that seems diametrically opposed in a lot of ways, right? Because shamanism, and I haven't studied shamanism, but my very scant, understanding and information involving it is that you're doing certain practices in this earth-based religion that embraces personal transformation, but it's self-directed. Fundamentalist Christianity and the other religions that have there's fundamentalist sects for every religion, and there are the mystical sects. So with Christianity, you have the Baptists and you have the Gnostics. With Jewish people, you have the Old Testament and the, kind of the legalistic, all the 14, I think it's 14, I think it's like 413 commandments, versus the Kabbalah, which is the mystical version. Islam, the mystical sect, is Sufism. But anyway, the point is that the mystical is more open-ended, and the ninth house is more regimented, is more like organized religion, and that doesn't have to be anything bad. I mean, sometimes it can feel really good to work within a paradigm because you feel like you have some kind of boundaries. If you're undergoing a spiritual awakening, sometimes you might feel like you're all over the place. And having if let's say you're studying yogic philosophy and maybe you're studying to be a hatha yoga teacher. Yes, I would probably put that in the ninth house. But it's, it might have its regimented side to it, and it might have its do's and don'ts and things like that. But it also provides structure. The eighth house to me is more open-ended. So you might be, kind of re-exploring when Mars goes back into the eighth, the more open-ended thing. But it can also be with the ninth house, the law, and the eighth house is other people's money. So some kind of thing with a will, legal matters that have to be, ironed out. That could be, and then you have Jupiter in the seventh house, which is the courtroom and the goings on with that. So you have Jupiter, the ruler of Sag, in that seventh house that also relates to the law. So very interesting. On the 8th, Mercury goes into Capricorn for Sag. That's the second house. And boy, that's delayed, even though we're still technically in Capricorn season. Mercury even going in there in January is wild, to me. In, the second week of January. But that's because of the Mercury retrograde. So this is your second house of earned income. Thinking about these matters for whatever reason. Maybe it does have something to do with Mars going back into Cancer 2 days earlier, because that's the opposite house. These are two money houses. The second house is the money that you earn. The 8th house is other people's money. On the 13th, full moon at 24 degrees of Cancer, and Mars will be engaged with this. Mars will be in conjunction with this. So this is falling in that 8th house. So it'll be very emotional. It'll be emotional on steroids for Sagittarius, because you have both the Cancer angle being a water sign, but it's in your 8th house, which is a water house. This is Scorpio's domain, so it does favor even more so secrets coming out, hidden information being revealed. With Mars, there can be anger at this revealed information. Telling you in advance, forewarned is forearmed. Choose whether you really want to react to something, because it may not be worth it to react. It might be something where you are full of righteous indignation. Maybe you have a reason to be upset. But the thing is that sometimes when you have a conjunction between the moon and Mars, and if you have this in your natal chart, Sag, then, definitely pay attention to that, because it can cause you to act on impulse because your emotions get engaged. And, sometimes that's not going to be the worst thing in the world. Maybe sometimes it even has its upsides. Maybe it kind of forces somebody to take action when normally they would just procrastinate, but their emotions allow them to kind of put themselves out there. But I think that more times than not, when we act out of emotion, we live to regret it. So just keep that in mind. And if secrets come out, welcome them, because you don't want things to be hidden from you. I feel like there might be something positive money-wise with this. I don't know about the conjunction with Mars, but the full moon in the 8th, that can be like, maybe that has something to do with investments. I think if it is investments, it was something that you've already, unless it's like you have this psychic desire to invest in a stock and it immediately pays off for you. But I don't know. On the 19th, the sun goes into Aquarius. This is a friendly angle for Sag. This is the sextile, which is harmonious. You do have to, it doesn't just drop in your lap, but you do, if you put in effort, you can get a lot in return. So this is in the area of communication. So keep that in mind, Sag, because this could be very productive for you if you're a teacher, if you're a writer, if you are a social media person or an aspiring one, perhaps. Because, remember, Pluto is here now. So you can really become a mover and a shaker. But again, you have to be willing to be above board, meaning that you're not going to do something that is underhanded. Pluto is a karmic bitch slap, okay? It's a very powerful transit, but especially when it's first entering a particular sector, the person may experience some kind of a crisis. And when, you're met with crisis, for instance, when it was in the second house, when it was in Sag's second house, if, you lost a lot of money or you lost your job and you felt like you had no money and you were tempted to do something that was less than ethical just to build up your finances very quickly, you might have thought better of it. Or if you did try to do it, you might have been met with immediate blowback. So with the third house, be impeccable with your word. Speaking of which, on the 27th, Mercury is going into that sector, so it will be in conjunction with Pluto. So your word is I mean, if you did an affirmation around this time, wow, that could really empower you. On the 29th, we have a new moon at 9 degrees of Aquarius in this sector too. So we have like, you know, I mean, it's not like that bizarre because it's, in the Aquarius season, but still, just keep that in mind because this can be a really good time for you if you are in the social media realm or if you're in the educational field or any kind of like if, you're a writer, this could be very good for new ideas and new endeavors. Interestingly, the very next day after the new moon in Aquarius, we have on the 30th, Uranus turning direct at 23 degrees of Taurus, which means which is significant because Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So that certainly could be something that indicates that there might even be a connection here in some way. But it is in Taurus, and Taurus for you is the 6th house, which is the house of work, your daily routine, so how you order your time, and your health. This is really kind of a time when you probably will feel very much like you want to break free from the 9-to-5 grind. So keep in mind that, this is very supported, especially with, you might be getting money from others where you don't have to necessarily earn it yourself, which would be more like the second house. But I'm not saying that this is going to happen on the 30th where you will actually do this, but you will certainly feel like doing it. So just keep that in mind. And anything that you do that is connected to the intuitive arts or the healing arts, like Reiki, healing energy medicine, in other words, or astrology is connected to this, Uranus, or working remotely, that for sure could be something that you just go for. Like, yeah, I want to do this. That might be at the end of the month what is coming in for you. All right, Sag, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, I'm really promoting my double astrological reading. Well, I have different package deals, but this one called my Deep Dive is an hour of natal chart analysis. And if you've never had your chart analyzed, you might be interested in that. Plus a look at 2025 from your specific chart. This reading that I just did is general. It's, it's for everybody, but your, different house cusps will vary in degrees. And so the timing issues, and I'm not one of those people that I think of myself primarily as an evolutionary astrologist. I'm more interested in what we do on our own behalf than predictive astrology, to be honest with you. But predictive astrology to me can be very helpful for thematic reasons, to really see what energies could be playing out for a person in a particular year. Like, for instance, when I'm talking about here at the beginning of 2025, I was mentioning this 8th house. And it's also, I keep talking about the money, but it is the personal transformation. Jupiter will be in Cancer later in the year and will really highlight this because Jupiter is expansive. It will really bring this out even more so. Not only other people's money blessing you, but also the idea of you transforming yourself and being a Sag. Self-growth is a big love of Sagittarians. So, yeah, that's called my deep dive reading, and that is a special price because it's a package deal. I have one with the tarot included with those 2 readings called The Whole Enchilada. And I have another package deal and just individual readings, career and love. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.